One of the things that I'm not really a fan of on the internet.com is the way that online internet political figures, and I'm sure this happens in other internet spaces as well, tend to have their actions simplified and or fictionalized, and we discuss them in terms of redemption arcs, going down a dark path, and all this other nonsense. And a perfect example of this is the person that we're going to be talking about and largely praising, which is Ana Kasparian, because recently she's made some changes in her political beliefs. She's made those changes publicly. It was actually a long process for her to figure out that she was getting a lot of bad information from the left-wing media, and this is often reported as the Ana Kasparian redemption arc, when in reality, in actuality, this is just a normal person having their opinion changed in some categories, but overall not being a completely new human person, not going from villain to hero. This is not a Vegeta situation or anything like that. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, if not for this Meatball video that Ana Kasparian put out, which I will be praising, I would likely be cracking down on the Young Turks coverage of Ron DeSantis' curriculum, because in that particular video, it seems like they missed the entire point of the curriculum, and they went out of their way, whether intentionally or unintentionally, to race bait in that situation. And if you'll remember, this is about that one line about how some people who were enslaved in the United States of America developed skills that could benefit them later, and this was wildly misinterpreted intentionally by many people to say that the Florida State Education Board is teaching kids that slavery was good for Black Americans. But if you look at the curriculum, what you'll see is that they were talking about people who endured the hardships of slavery, developed skills, and used those skills after they were freed. It actually lists specific people that were blacksmiths or learned other kinds of trades or other kinds of professions that went on to be successes in the United States of America. So quite literally, they took something that was meant to inspire, meant to give hope, meant to tell people that even in the direst, harshest circumstances, they can prevail, and use that to race bait and attack Ron DeSantis. And I know Kamala Harris is the one who started this, but in reality, this is a total misnomer, and it completely flies in the face of what they're actually teaching in Florida, and it was perpetuated by the Young Turks. So that right there, don't like it. And I was going to do a video response to it, but then this came up, I saw it live, so I want to talk about this, but understand the caveat that I'm giving you in the beginning of this video, which is people are human. They're going to be right in some categories, they're going to be wrong in other categories. It's more complicated than villain arcs or redemption arcs or anything so simple.
A popular social media influencer who is not the person you see in the images next to me, named Deja Blackwell, also known as Meatball online, was arrested after live streaming.
So first things first, and I do appreciate Ana Kasparian for calling out that they're putting up the most random images on the screen as they're talking about this story. I initially, when I saw the first image, thought that they were doing that thing that they've often done where they cut to B-roll or stock footage, or in this case stock photos, of white people as they are telling a story about Black people so that your brain doesn't make the connection. However, it looks like what is being emphasized in this stock footage, these stock images, is the microphone on the camera, but again, just a weird job by the people producing the Young Turks show right here at this moment, when you could obviously cut to pictures or even the mugshot of the person we're talking about, the woman known as Meatball.
A crowd of people looting stores in Philadelphia's city center last week. Now, her lawyer is accusing people who are criticizing her of being racist. So before we get to the lawyer's claims, let's get to what happened with the looting, how this woman was arrested and why she was arrested, and then you can judge for yourselves.
So I just want to say, because I have this standard and it remains consistent throughout the entire history of this channel, of giving defense attorneys the benefit of the doubt. Defense attorneys are supposed to advocate for their client. They're not always supposed to tell you the most factual or most legitimate take. they're supposed to do what they can in order to support that client. And in an instance where your client is on video looting and rioting and receiving stolen property and instigating rioting and also threatening people, like the video clip of Popeye's Chicken, there's really not a lot you can do other than try to concoct something like this. That being said, I think it is incredibly divisive, and overall, even given that caveat, I do want to point out that this happens to be something that is incredibly destructive for the country, that immediately, in order to escape responsibility, people think it's a good go-to move in order to play the race card.
Now, what happened? So groups of looters hit multiple locations in Philadelphia, including an Apple store, 18 state liquor stores, pharmacies, Lululemon, and more. Authorities ended up arresting 52 individuals, and they even recovered an illegal gun.
Now, as we talked about on this channel before, this looting was chaotic. They hit a bunch of different luxury stores and a bunch of state liquor stores. Now we have the video of Meatball herself at one of the liquor stores receiving stolen property where they ripped the gate. That will be played for you in a little bit, but it was an absolutely destructive and chaotic night, and it was instigated in large part by Meatball live streaming this to over 10,000 concurrent viewers at the time that this was all going on. So she was having a good time, she was embracing it, she was loving every aspect of it, and she was cheering it on and demanding that people give her stuff that they were stealing from these businesses.
Now here's an example, just so you see with your own eyes, what the scenes looked like as the looting took place.
Security running. Oh, what's up?
Now look, we showed that video a bunch of different times on this channel. As you can hear, it is Meatball who is cheering on the looting and rioting. She's saying everybody must eat in front of the liquor store. She's screaming free iPhones, laughing at the security guard at the Apple store who ended up running away from the mob of people. And they didn't really show this part in the Young Turks version of clips that they put out, but I've shown it a bunch of times on this channel. After the alarms went off on the iPhones, rather than just abandoning the property on the street, they decided to destroy the property because better it be destroyed than actually be returned to its rightful owner. An absolutely disastrous, destructive, and utterly pointless act.
Crazy. Oh my God, this is crazy. Ain't nothing. Oh my God, all these iPhones. And they still going on. Oh my God. Put that shit. Oh my God.
And yet people are excusing this behavior because, you know, it's just criminality. These people are starving. Whatever reason that they can come up with in order to pretend this away, they are utilizing, and Ana Kasparian not having any of it.
Now, the woman you hear yelling free iPhones and kind of laughing off what's happening is Deja Blackwell. At one point, she's heard saying, "Tell the police they either lock me up tonight or it's going to get lit. It's going to be a movie." Well, Meatball, you said it. You got arrested. And now she and her lawyer are crying about it.
You know, I've seen that snark from Ana Kasparian in a great number of cases, and I've often criticized it in the past, but it is incredibly well utilized right here. And yeah, Meatball asked to be arrested or said they better arrest me, and then she was surprised and shocked and started crying when the police actually did arrest her. One of my favorite parts from her live stream is when they knocked on her window and she said, "I don't have anything to do with anything," even though we saw almost 10,000 people were still watching her live stream on Instagram at that point in time.
Unsurprisingly, the influencer with close to 650,000 followers across Instagram and TikTok got some blowback. Luckily, her followers were really not appreciative of her involvement in this. And now Blackwell's lawyer is accusing those criticizing her of racism. Because had that person been white or Latino or Muslim, I mean, the commentary would be different, right? Except it wouldn't. I don't think it would be. The idea that she is now facing criticism and prosecution simply because she happens to be a black woman is ridiculous, and yet another example of providing cover for illegal behavior, bad behavior, by using and weaponizing race. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting when it happens, and I'm sick of it.
You know, I didn't really think of this until Ana Kasparian brought it up from the attorney in this video, but it wouldn't be any different. In fact, it would likely be worse if the influencer were a white person, because we've actually seen this happen before. Remember during the Black Lives Matter riots, I believe it was a mall in the state of Arizona, when Jake or Logan Paul, honestly, I don't remember which one. I confuse the Paul brothers all the time. I apologize. I'm not 13 years old. Relax, sit down a minute, take a step back. We're actually in the mall as it was being looted, and they got a ton of criticism, even though there was no evidence that they actually instigated that looting or rioting. I believe there was actually an image of one of these brothers holding a liquor bottle, much like in this scenario, and there were criminal charges. There were people demanding that he be deplatformed, and again, unlike these other instances, he was legitimately out there documenting the incident and not instigating it at all. He may have held a liquor bottle at one point in time, but there's no actual evidence that he stole that property. And again, he documented the footage of the rioting and the looting that was going on at that mall. This scenario significantly worse, but he doesn't have that shield, and there hasn't been as many calls to remove this girl from social media, despite the fact that she's now selling merchandise of her mugshot in order to raise money based on her participation in these crimes.
So let me give you what her lawyer had to say. Her name's Jessica Mann, managing attorney at Shaka Johnson. It sickens me to witness the media's complicity in what can only be described as an all-out assault on black and brown people, as their character and actions are mercilessly vilified.
So this quote is completely and utterly ridiculous, but honestly, don't take it from me. Take it from Ana Kasparian herself, who has a hilarious reaction to this quote and reading it, and you could just see on her face the anger is building up, and I appreciate it. I genuinely do. Thank you, Ana, for producing this video. It made me smile. It made my heart nice and warm.
Can you guys cue up the video again, please? We're gonna watch it again. I'm gonna read that quote again, and then we're gonna go to the video again. Let's read the quote again. Jessica Mann is quoted as saying, "It sickens me to witness the media's complicity in what can only be described as an all-out assault on black and brown people, as their character and actions are mercilessly vilified." Now let's take a look at the character and actions of Meatball. Let's watch.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. Reading the attorney's quote and juxtaposing that to the actual footage of her looting and rioting, especially when that quote says, oh, the media is trying to denigrate the character and assault black and brown people based on racism or whatever, when it's all about the actions. And by the way, she didn't even show one of the most damning pieces of footage, which is again, Meatball going into the Popeyes restaurant and demanding that they give them food. And think about it, this is her demanding property. It's probably her most direct, aggressive action in participating in this.
Look, the girl laughing back there. She think it's a joke. Look, she laughing. Y'all, throw that chicken up here on my mom. Throw that fucking chicken up here. We want the chicken. What's up, gang? In the bag. We want the chicken.
And that's not even shown in this Young Turks video.
Now, mind you, the media didn't post that video all over the internet. Meatball posted that video all over the internet. So was Meatball vilifying herself? I would say so. By the way, the lawyer, Mann, also argued that the media should have focused on how Blackwell was doing nothing more than capturing the raw reality of public outrage when she streamed the events on September 26th.
So again, even though this is objectively not true, I like this a lot more from the attorney than the Meatball is the victim of evil white racism angle, because at least you're trying to put a defense. Oh, Meatball may have been excited, but she was just documenting this, which is protected First Amendment activity.
Now, what she's referring to is, the context is a case involving a police shooting. The police officer killed a 27-year-old man by the name of Eddie Irizarry during a traffic stop last month. Blackwell did refer to Eddie at least twice during her live stream, so I want to give you the full context of that. I also want to tell you I don't care, okay? You don't respond to injustice by looting 18 liquor stores and an Apple store, okay? And by the way, there were peaceful protests in regard to that situation. And those peaceful protests were not in any way tied to the looters who decided to, exploit the situation in order to engage in the criminality that you just watched.
Look, I want to make this clear. Were there peaceful protesters that were out there in Philadelphia that did not participate in any of the looting or any of the rioting? Yes, for sure, 100%. But the looting and rioting started right after the peaceful protests. It was clearly and obviously the cover that these people used, the distraction, in order to perpetrate what they did. So this idea that we have to go out of our way to completely separate the protesters with these looters and rioters, when we actually saw Meatball 2 different times referencing Eddie Irizarry, the person who was shot by the police and all of that, is a little bit ridiculous and absurd. I don't feel like that needs to be said. Obviously, there are people who were legitimately protesting that had nothing to do with anything. But yes, it was connected. That was the pretext for this. That is obvious.
The reason why I'm so angry about this at this point is because, honestly, our side of the political aisle loves to provide cover for it, and I find it gross, and I'm done doing it. I'm done trying to be understanding toward that perspective. I'm not understanding anymore. It is destroying communities. It is mostly victimizing majority Black and brown communities. Stores are shutting down. People are losing their jobs. And then you have these wannabe revolutionaries streaming day in and day out, providing cover for this garbage. I'm not into it. It's stupid, and I'm glad she got arrested. Great.
Again, how many times in the history of this channel have I criticized Ana Kasparian for having rage and anger and it being directed in the completely wrong direction? Well, those criticisms have fallen by the wayside. She is directing them at the appropriate location, at the appropriate people, and to be clear, Ana is not wrong about people on the left wing doing this. Another video that I could have done related to this had to do with the Hill Rising, using the very traditional deflection that we always hear, which is, what about wage theft? You know, the one that Sam Cedar pretended that the left wing doesn't use when I was talking to him.
Look, I have no interest in saying it's okay to steal. It obviously isn't. But I do think there's a question to be asked about why there's an emphasis on certain kind of stories and not others. For example, the most common type of threat in America, and Google it, this is undisputed. The most common type of threat in terms of numbers of dollars stolen is wage theft. It is wage theft.
Now, to make matters worse, in that Hill Rising segment, which again is not named in particular by Ana Kasparian, Brianna Joy Gray actually says, well, isn't it a bad thing that the downtowns in these cities are just banks and CVS's and big box stores, as if the existence of those stores somehow excuses the looting?
It is a hellscape that's created in part because the only people who can afford property in these locations, you've seen it, every downtown is now just a collection of CVS's and banks.
As if there aren't small businesses that happen to get looted all the time. Now, in the state of Pennsylvania, I believe all their liquor stores are state-run. That's why Ana said 18 state-owned liquor stores, because that's how it's structured over there. But liquor stores across the country are not all state-run. A bunch of them have been getting looted, and yes, those are mostly small businesses. Small delis have been looted, bodegas, if you're somebody who calls them that, in New York City and across the country have been looted. We've seen this time and time again in big business and in small businesses, and it drives out these businesses and, like Ana said, hurts people's jobs and puts people in danger. What if the security guard, in fear of potentially losing his job, tried to stop one of these looters and ended up getting jumped and attacked by all of them? Would that have been an acceptable outcome because the people are upset because of wage theft and or because there's only some big box stores in the area, there's not enough small businesses? No, that's patently absurd and ridiculous, and I appreciate Ana Kasparian for calling it out. Now look, I'm gonna skip over Cenk's entire section of this conversation. He largely agrees with Ana Kasparian, but he does this thing that I've noticed that happens whenever Anna's talking directly about a specific issue, where he kind of just says a lot of unrelated things, like brings up the language of the unheard quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., says sometimes it's justified, this and that and whatever, and honestly, I had enough of your nonsense, Cenk. The point of this story is Meatball and her attorney claiming that it's racism and her pretending to be the victim. So I don't want to hear it, Cenk. I'm not into it. Stop it. Cut it out. You do this all the time. You try to broaden it whenever the criticism can be directed towards the left wing. But when the topic of criticism happens to be somebody on the right, or it happens to be a Democrat that Cenk believes to be more right, somebody he would call a corporate Democrat, Cenk zeroes in on that person, and he doesn't have to give 18 million other caveats on why it's okay for him to talk about this, because he's talked about those things all the time before. Again, it's just not very productive in terms of a conversation. I understand you might have to do this for a left-wing audience, because one of the big attacks that's been levied against Ana Kasparian is that even if she's covering things that are true, she shouldn't focus on those things. She shouldn't talk about it because it hurts the left. In fact, this is what they attacked Jesse Singal on for covering the transes issues, even though he's not particularly anti-transes. And yeah, it's just a weakness that I see in Cenk that he does not typically show when he's going head-to-head against somebody that he strongly opposes. And I don't think it's necessary. I look at the reaction from the Young Turks audience, I look at the reaction from the general population, and it seems like everybody's on board with this because obviously this girl was filming herself committing crimes.
Philadelphia's interim police commissioner, John Stanford, accused Blackwell of leading a caravan of looters from store to store, as well as committing burglaries herself and encouraging others to commit burglaries.
Now, Anna quotes the police chief, and by the way, you could see it on the video. I froze some still images, who says that, yes, Blackwell did commit burglaries herself. She was not only cheering on the rioting, but participating in it. And she talks about how she spent a night in jail.
Now, as I mentioned, she was arrested, so she did spend some time in jail before her mother bailed her out. And so later, she posted on social media about it and said, "I've never been through nothing like that in my life. What happened? I need some sleep. I'm scared. I'm traumatized. Never again in my life." You know what's also traumatizing? Working in one of those stores that's getting looted by a giant group of people who have no concern for anyone inside the store, no concern for the workers. As I mentioned, one of the individuals had a gun on them. Luckily, no one was actually hurt as a result of that. But she also told local reporters that she never wants to go back to jail. She said, quote, "I just prefer, never loot again, stay out of trouble." So apparently, serving a little bit of time behind bars does serve as a deterrent for some.
Now, while overall I do like this segment from the Young Turks, I just have to say, the idea that Meatball learned anything is just patently absurd and completely untrue. If you look at her social media posts, she said she was quitting social media due to all the stress. By the way, she asked for cash in order to pay for her legal fees. In her video, she talked about how she personally was traumatized by the whole situation, so she was already playing the victim, and she disassociated herself from her own actions.
I just want to say thanks to everybody that, carry for me. Ain't nothing, never been nothing. I never been through nothing like that ever in my life. I don't even know what happened. Like, I need some sleep. I'm scared. I'm traumatized.
But more importantly, she's selling merchandise and her brand is benefiting off of the notoriety, even if it's negative publicity from this event. So yeah, while I would hope that this would serve as an example to other people, in reality, I expect Krasner's District Attorney's Office to drop the charges in this instance. And honestly, the example, especially if she starts raising a bunch of money to other people, will be live stream your crimes and you'll get some internet fame and notoriety, and maybe people will send you money. And if you're in one of these left-wing cities, guess what? You're not going to really be prosecuted anyway. Again, she has 6 felonies right now, but I do not expect for the whole process to go through and for those to remain. I would be incredibly surprised if she served more than a comically low sentence, like 90 days or 60 days, which, by the way, she would be out after like half of it, if I'm being perfectly honest. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about Ana Kasparian's coverage? Did you like it as much as I did? Or are you against her for other reasons? Now I want to thank the members, everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And as usual, you guys know the drill. If you like the video, you hit the like button to let me know. You can subscribe for more content by hitting the subscribe button. You can follow me on all of my social medias. They're linked in the description. If you click them and then click follow, that's how you do it. You could support me via the support links, which are also in the description box. Again, you just click those. This has been me talking about Ana Kasparian versus Meatball. Till next time.